Politics in America on any regular basis, you've probably heard someone ask, or you yourself have had the question, when are they going to say enough's enough? Well, when? Now, this week. Trump's MAGA base is splintering in a more high-profile way than we've seen this term. You take Tucker Carlson, who, as I emphasize, is not just another conservative who kind of zigs and zags on different issues. This is someone who broke tradition and the journalistic rules of his former employers to go out and campaign for Trump at the convention, at MSG. That's something you didn't even see most other Fox hosts do. So he went that far only to take it all back this week and apologize for even helping get us in this situation at all, for getting Trump elected.
We're implicated in this for sure.
Yes.
It's not enough to say, well, I changed my mind, or like, oh, this is bad, I'm out. You and me and millions of people like us are the reason this is happening right now. I do think it's like a moment to wrestle with our own consciences. We'll be tormented by it for a long time. I will be. And I want to say I'm sorry for misleading people. It was not intentional. That's all I'll say.
He's sorry. He's tormented. This is something to wrestle with as a matter of your conscience. This sounds like you committed a sin. You did something terrible. And I emphasize that because there's plenty of times in politics where you say, oh, you picked this policy, it didn't work out. You picked this person early on, and over time, they didn't deliver. There are failed political careers in both parties. Their votes people might reflect upon differently. He's talking about it at a moral level, which tells you either he thinks it's that bad or he knows his audience thinks it's that bad. Either way, it's bad. Now, that's kind of the money clip when you talk about this in the, what goes viral these days, or what clip you keep seeing on MS Now across our different shows. That was like it. That's the money clip. There's more, because if you peel back the layers, Carlson has gone up against some Trump policies in recent weeks. The war, which is, of course, a huge issue for him and his audience, and what he calls a betrayal.
Now we're in a weird moment, an even stranger moment, where a lot of people who really like Trump are very disappointed in Trump. In fact, more than disappointed, feel betrayed or enraged, feel like suckers, feel like they've been taken for a ride. How could I possibly have supported that given what it became?
This is why we're not just dealing in theories. Tucker Carlson refers to a lot of people who like Trump feeling betrayed. So either he has the evidence to back that up. I showed you a third of Republicans turning on Trump. Or he has that idea in his head, and that's part of what he says out loud has led him away from Trump. So this is bigger than Tucker. That's bad for the White House. Tucker also knew better, a fact check that's important, even if people want to welcome folks who join the No Kings movement or whatever you want to call what Tucker's going to become. We don't ignore the facts around here. Because of the lawsuit, private text messages, which I mentioned to you, show how Carlson said he hated Trump passionately, and that because of Trump's demise then, he was excited that, quote, we are very, very close to being able to ignore Trump most nights. I truly can't wait. That was around the insurrection period in 2021. A few years later, Tucker was campaigning for the man that he passionately hated and wanted to condemn to the dustbin of cable news history. The Times reported how they were chuckling together at that RNC that I mentioned, that Carlson said, Trump is the funniest person I've ever met in my life. He's a wonderful person. I know him well. Now, Carlson is also, in addition to saying his audience and Trump fans are upset now, he also says there was a kind of epiphany because the Iran policy is what changed everything. Others, however, don't buy it.
I don't believe him. He's not getting a bear hug from me. I don't think, the world's on fire, and you can't just say, oopsies.
Is he now claiming he had no idea that Donald Trump held the position that he would never permit Iran to have nuclear weapons? If that's what he's saying today, he's kind of a moron.
That's big. Tucker Carlson apologizing for helping Trump get elected. I believe they call that liar's remorse. It's
liar's remorse, buyer's remorse, situational ethics based on what your own podcast fans want to hear. There are other accounts that this is just too little too late. To see Carlson break with Trump, Rolling Stone notes, as anything other than a calculated beacon for his next political life raft would be to engage in the kind of blindness Carlson would like us all to believe he was afflicted with by chance. Remember, we have the text from 2021. We know that in his private moments, Tucker said, A, he hated Trump passionately, and B, he couldn't wait to move past him. Maybe he's been waiting on this moment for the ensuing 5 years in between, another time to look past him. Whatever it is bigger than Tucker. It is the connective tissue between the now third of all identified Republicans who oppose Trump and the energy and economic crisis that has curdled the rest of the thinking, observing American electorate against this economy.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like you said in the earlier segment, I think we're looking at really kind of an epical break in the MAGA movement between people like Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Marjorie Taylor Greene, other figures, and Trump and sort of more mainline establishment MAGA people like maybe Mark Levin on Fox News or Ben Shapiro. There's been a lot of bad feelings in MAGA going back to Trump's attempt to close the Jeffrey Epstein case after the Charlie Kirk assassination. There were sort of more risks that opened. But I think it's really blown wide open here with the Iran war, where people like Tucker Carlson, purely now that the war hasn't been wrapped up, I mean, they're looking around and they're saying, not only maybe this isn't what I wanted, but also just in practical terms, they're realizing they kind of need to ditch Trump and get ready for the next thing.
Yeah. And what does that look like for someone like Tucker? On the one hand, he's got decades in public life. There was a pre-Trump Tucker. On the other hand, he did hitch pretty close.
Yeah, I mean, look, on one hand, we're at a point where Tucker is now implying that Trump might be the Antichrist. He's saying he might want to be bigger than a god. He might want to destroy religion. I mean, so that's how bad it's gotten. J.D. Vance is obviously relatively tied to the war as well. Tucker was very close with J.D. Vance. Maybe Tucker will run for president himself. But as you said, I mean, he has to sort of craft this new what comes after MAGA. And I think we're seeing more and more people try to prepare themselves for it. And it looks like it's not going to be whatever Trump wants it to be.
Which, again, speaks to his slipping grip. He makes a lot of noise about a lot of things. A lot of damage has been done, and we've documented it, so we're not minimizing it. But this idea that Donald Trump can decide who the next nominee is, or he wants a third term, or indict 30 people and get them jailed, none of them have been jailed. So there's a lot of gap there, and the power that he has domestically seems to be ebbing politically, even as, of course, he can start wars. We all see that. Here was Charlemagne, who's been a pretty independent-minded political figure, discussing the impact.
He's going to stick to Republicans. He's going to stick to MAGA. Okay, if MAGA is still the dominant force in the Republican Party, just because he's soured on Trump doesn't mean he's jumped off the MAGA train. So Democrats, y'all got what you need, okay? Tucker said he was wrong. Tucker said he misled the people. Y'all should be clipping that up and getting it ready for attack ads in all the upcoming elections, because anyone Tucker endorses that's in opposition to your party, you can just put that clip in campaign ads and say, are you really going to listen to someone who got it so wrong? Okay.
Will?
I think there's something to that. I mean, look, I think the MAGA movement, in part led by Tucker and other figures, is really fractured right now. I think there's kind of a hardcore Fox News watching base that is going to go with Trump for whatever he wants, as with 33% of people in the country. But I think, younger people, they're disillusioned, even a lot of young people on the right, and they're kind of looking at Trump as someone who doesn't represent them. And, it can't help that you have figures like Tucker saying, whether it's Trump's the Antichrist or people like Candace Owens saying he's in hoc to Israel. He's taking fire from a lot of different places. I mean, look, even Megyn Kelly, who I think is very much a mercenary figure, is getting off the Trump train.